The year was 2025. The world was watching as the United States embarked on a new chapter under the leadership of a familiar face. Donald Trump, a man who needs no introduction, was back in the Oval Office. His return to power was met with both fervent support and intense opposition, reflecting the deep divisions within the country. His mission? Make America great again. Again. This time his focus was sharper, his resolve stronger. He was determined to leave an indelible mark on the nation's economic landscape. One of his main weapons in this economic crusade? Tariffs. These were not just any tariffs, but strategic ones aimed at reshaping the trade dynamics with America's closest allies and competitors. Specifically, tariffs on Canadian goods. Canada, a longtime trading partner, found itself in the crosshairs of Trump's aggressive trade policies. The goal? To protect American jobs and boost domestic manufacturing. Trump believed that by imposing these tariffs he could revive industries that had been in decline for decades. "We're losing jobs to Canada," Trump argued, "and it's time to bring them back." His rhetoric resonated with many who felt left behind by globalization and the shifting tides of the global economy. These tariffs, primarily targeting steel and aluminum, were meant to make Canadian products more expensive for American consumers. The idea was to create a competitive edge for domestic producers. The hope was that this price hike would encourage Americans to buy American-made goods instead. By doing so, the administration aimed to stimulate local industries and create jobs. It was a gamble, a high-stakes game of economic chicken with America's northern neighbor. The stakes were high, and the potential fallout was significant. The Trump administration argued that these tariffs were necessary to protect national security and level the playing field. They claimed that without such measures, American industries would continue to suffer. They claimed that Canada was dumping cheap steel and aluminum into the U.S. market, harming American industries. This narrative was used to justify the tariffs and rally support among the American public. However, many experts questioned the validity of these claims. Economists and trade analysts pointed out that the global supply chains were far more complex than the administration acknowledged. They argued that the tariffs would ultimately hurt American consumers and businesses more than they helped. The increased costs of raw materials would likely be passed on to consumers, leading to higher prices for everyday goods. Moreover, there was concern that the tariffs could spark a trade war with Canada, leading to retaliatory measures that could further disrupt the economies of both nations. The long-term impact of such a conflict was uncertain, but the risks were undeniable. As the debate raged on, the American public watched closely, aware that the outcome of this gamble could shape the future of the nation's economy for years to come. The stakes were high, and the world was watching. Canada, however, wasn't about to take this lying down. The Canadian government, led by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, decided to take a stand against what they perceived as unfair trade practices. They believed that a strong response was necessary to protect their national interests and to send a clear message to the United States. Justin Trudeau, Canada's Prime Minister, responded with a firm and swift counterpunch retaliatory tariffs on a range of American goods. This move was not just about economics, it was also about asserting Canada's sovereignty and showing that they would not be bullied on the international stage. These tariffs targeted key American exports including bourbon, orange juice, and crucially for the auto industry, car parts. By selecting these specific goods, Canada aimed to hit the U.S. where it hurt, targeting industries that were both economically significant and politically sensitive. The message was clear. If you want to play the tariff game, Canada is more than happy to play hardball. This was a strategic move designed to force the U.S. to reconsider its own tariffs and to bring them to the negotiating table. The economic impact was immediate and significant. Consumer prices on both sides of the border rose, hitting wallets in both countries. Everyday items became more expensive and the cost of living increased, causing frustration among consumers. The tariffs disrupted long-standing supply chains, creating uncertainty and driving up costs for businesses. Companies that had relied on a steady flow of goods across the border suddenly found themselves scrambling to find alternatives, often at a higher cost. The trade war, as it quickly became known, sparked fear of job losses on both sides of the border. Factories faced the prospect of shutting down, and workers worried about their future. The uncertainty created a ripple effect, impacting not just the industries directly involved, but the broader economy as well. In Canada, the auto industry, heavily integrated with the U.S. market, braced for impact. The sector, which relied on the seamless flow of parts and vehicles across the border, faced potential disruptions that could lead to significant financial losses and job cuts. In the US, businesses reliant on Canadian imports faced rising costs and supply chain disruptions. Small businesses in particular struggled to absorb the increased costs, leading to higher prices for consumers and reduced profit margins for the companies. The economic pain, it seemed, was mutual. Both countries felt the strain, and the longer the tariffs remained in place, the more pronounced the effects became. The hope was that this economic pressure would eventually lead to a resolution. But in the meantime, the fallout was felt by businesses and consumers alike. One sector hit particularly hard by the tariff tit-for-tat was the burgeoning electric vehicle market. Canada, with its rich reserves of critical minerals like lithium and cobalt, plays a vital role in the North American EV supply chain. The tariffs, however, threatened to throw a wrench in the works. The increased cost of components, many of which crossed the border multiple times during the manufacturing process, made EVs more expensive to produce. This in turn translated to higher prices for consumers, potentially stalling the adoption of this environmentally friendly technology. Beyond the immediate economic impact, the tariffs threatened to stifle innovation and cooperation in the EV sector. With the US and Canada locked in a trade war, collaboration on research and development, crucial for the advancement of EV technology, became strained. The tariffs, it seemed, were putting the brakes on the electric future of transportation. The trade war didn't just impact the economies of the two countries, it also strained the historically close relationship between Canada and the United States. The tariffs created a rift between the two nations, fostering a sense of resentment and distrust. Canadians, long accustomed to a friendly and collaborative relationship with their southern neighbor, were particularly angered by the Trump administration's aggressive trade tactics. The tariffs were seen by many as a betrayal of the close bond between the two countries. The political fallout was significant. The trade war dominated headlines, creating a climate of uncertainty and tension. It also became a political football, with both sides using it to score points and attack their opponents. The tariffs, initially intended to boost domestic economies, were having the unintended consequence of driving a wedge between two of North America's closest allies. As the trade war dragged on, public opinion on both sides of the border began to sour. What started as a political maneuver soon turned into a daily struggle for many ordinary citizens. The initial fervor and support for the trade policies began to wane as the real-world implications became evident. People from all walks of life, from business owners to everyday consumers, felt the strain. The once bustling border crossings now saw long lines of frustrated individuals, each with their own story of hardship and delay. In the US, while some initially supported Trump's tough stance, many began to feel the pinch of higher prices and economic uncertainty. The cost of everyday goods began to rise and families found themselves having to make tough choices. Community town halls became venues for heated discussions, with citizens voicing their concerns and frustrations. The economic uncertainty also led to a decline in consumer confidence, affecting businesses across the country. Small business owners in particular struggled to keep their doors open as the cost of imported goods soared. Farmers, in particular, were hit hard by retaliatory tariffs, losing access to key Canadian markets. The agricultural sector, which had been a backbone of the American economy, faced unprecedented challenges. Fields that once yielded bountiful harvests now lay fallow, and expensive farming equipment sat unused. Protests erupted as farmers demanded relief and support from the government. The loss of key markets meant that many farmers were unable to sell their produce, leading to significant financial losses and in some cases the closure of family-run farms that had been in operation for generations. In Canada, the tariffs solidified the view of Trump as a bully, further damaging the US's reputation. The Canadian public, who had always viewed their southern neighbors with a mix of admiration and skepticism, now saw the US as an aggressor. Protests were a common sight, with citizens holding signs that expressed their disdain for the American president's policies. Public squares became forums for debate and discussion, with Canadians voicing their concerns about the long-term implications of the trade war on their economy, and their relationship with the U.S. The economic and political fallout from the trade war served as a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of the global economy and the potential consequences of protectionist policies. International trade ports, once bustling with activity, saw a decline in shipments. Global market graphs displayed on large screens showed a downward trend, reflecting the economic turmoil. The sight of closed stores became increasingly common, a testament to the far-reaching impact of the trade war. The ripple effects were felt not just in the US and Canada, but across the globe, as countries that relied on these two major economies for trade faced their own set of challenges. The trade war eventually ended, but not without leaving scars. Many businesses never recovered, and the economic landscape was forever altered. Empty factories and closed businesses stood as stark reminders of the conflict. Media outlets frequently covered stories of communities trying to rebuild and recover. Signs of economic recovery began to appear, but the road to full recovery was long and arduous. The lessons learned from this period were clear. The global economy is fragile, and protectionist policies can have devastating consequences. The episode highlighted the fragility of global trade relations and the potential for economic harm when nations resort to protectionist measures. World leaders, recognizing the need for cooperation, began to engage in more diplomatic discussions. Summits were held to address the issues and find ways to prevent such conflicts in the future. Damaged infrastructure was repaired, and efforts were made to restore trust and collaboration between nations. The trade war served as a wake-up call, emphasizing the importance of maintaining open and fair trade practices. The electric vehicle sector, caught in the crossfire, faced setbacks and lost opportunities. Factories that were once buzzing with activity now had idle workers. EV charging stations, which had been a symbol of progress and innovation, stood empty. Showrooms that once showcased the latest in electric vehicle technology now had empty spaces. The sector, which had been poised for significant growth, found itself grappling with supply chain disruptions and decreased consumer demand. The long-term impact on the industry was significant, with many companies having to rethink their strategies and plans for the future. The tariffs ultimately served as a cautionary tale, a reminder that in the interconnected world of trade, cooperation, not confrontation, is the key to shared prosperity. The global community learned valuable lessons from this episode. Leaders from around the world came together to discuss ways to foster cooperation and prevent future trade conflicts. The bustling international marketplaces that emerged in the aftermath were a testament to the resilience and adaptability of the global economy. The experience underscored the importance of working together to achieve mutual benefits and ensure a stable and prosperous future for all.